Well, hello and welcome. I am the Godless Engineer, and today on Did Jesus Exist, we are looking at Frank Turek. Frank has started up this whole new web series where he's going through the historical evidences for Jesus and whatever. So I thought that it would be good to kind of go through this first one. Plus, I had someone request that I address it, and so I hope that that particular person is watching. So let's go ahead and see what Frank has to say.
Puzzle pieces from non-Christian writers. This is sometimes called extra-biblical writers.
Okay, so before we get into this, he's talking about extra-biblical writers. Okay, I'll bite. Most of the, or all of the extra-biblical writers that I know of do not validate anything about Jesus in the Bible. They just restate Christian ideas and whatnot centered around the time. So let's see what he's got.
Biblical testimony. So these aren't people writing in the Bible. These are people like Josephus and Tacitus and Suetonius. These are...
All right. So Josephus... Tacitus, and Suetonius. Weird. I have 3 videos right now on my channel that discuss why those are bullshit sources to use in order to validate a Jesus. As far as Jesus is concerned, Josephus has forged writings in it, and the second reference to a Jesus in it doesn't actually reference the Jesus of the Bible. It's a wholly different Jesus, and it's a side note that was worked in. It was an interpolation later on when transcribing. The other two just, talk about common Christian beliefs of the time. And there's also one, I believe it's Suetonius. It's either Suetonius or Tacitus, but they actually mistake this other guy for Jesus, and it's not really that they mistake him, but it was an interpolation later, and so somebody was mistaken about it referencing a Jesus, and him causing all this kind of hoopla and disturbing the peace and all this other stuff. So, I mean, none of those sources actually reference a Jesus. So I'm kind of curious as to what you're going to do with them here. I mean, if these are the sources that we're talking about.
Writers who lived around that time who are giving us details about that era. And let's start in Matthew. Why avoid Herod Archelaus? Who is Archelaus? Archelaus is one of the sons of Herod the Great. When Herod the Great died in 6 BC, his kingdom was divided up, and one of his sons was Archelaus. And Archelaus got the section of the kingdom that included Jerusalem. And so he was the ruler from 4 BC to about 6 AD, so about 10 years. And as you read Matthew, he leaves a puzzle, because here's what Matthew records: that Joseph had a dream in Egypt to return to Israel with Mary and the child Jesus. But when Joseph heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. Now,
okay. There's some speculation as to whether Nazareth has actually existed around the time, but I think that that's really kind of up for debate. Because while a lot of people like to just say, "Oh, the earliest reference is this," while the earliest reference of it would indicate the earliest place that you could really place it in history, that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't exist before that. So you really have to go with prior probabilities and whatnot. And, I think that Nazareth probably did exist. I think the probability of it existing, around the time of Jesus, or his birth at least, is pretty good. I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to say that it didn't. So just based on the fact that the probability of it not existing around the time is so low, I mean, you kind of have to go with the idea that it did exist. That addresses that part. The other part is that he's trying to set the Bible in history. He's trying to be like, oh, hey, look, here's historical evidence in the Bible, so therefore, the Bible's historical. I don't know if that's where he's going yet, but it seems like that's where he's going. Now, just to specify, the Bible does have historical references in it. Like, for instance, King Herod. King Herod actually did exist. And then, of course, Archelaus, of course, he ruled after King Herod. But, right around the time that Jesus was born, which was between, what was it, 4 BCE and 6 CE, between that time period right there, I mean, Jesus is supposedly born in the Gospels, which he's only using Matthew in order to say this, but the Gospels actually have Matthew doing different things in different places, as far as whether or not he went directly here or if he had to go to Egypt and all this other stuff, or had to go somewhere. But anyways, the point of fact is that he's only using one book and he's totally ignoring the other books and what they say about Jesus' birth and them coming to where they eventually lived.
Galilee is to the north in Israel, and of course Jerusalem is the area whereby Archelaus is in charge, or where Archelaus is in charge. There is no explanation as to who Archelaus is. There's no explanation as to why Joseph would want to avoid this area. So
Well, it's not exactly a textbook there, Frank. I mean, there's no reason for them to actually explain who Archelaus is or why he was scary. I mean, it could, just by the passage alone, we could have thought, oh, well, Herod was trying to kill my kid, so of course we're going to avoid his son because he's just the son of Herod. I mean,
seems to me the puzzle is this: why is Archelaus so scary? Somebody not in the Bible tells us. In fact, this man is the greatest Jewish historian of the time. His name is Titus Josephus. He lived from 37 AD to 100 AD. And he was one of the rebels against the Romans in 66 AD when the Jews tried to boot the Romans out. That did not end well.
Okay, if you would like to know a whole lot more on Flavius Josephus, I suggest this link right up here in the cards. It explains a lot about how Josephus came to be Flavius Josephus, what he was before he swapped to the Roman side like a dirty traitor and everything. So definitely go and check out that link.
What happened in 70 AD? The temple in the entire country basically was overrun by the Romans, and the temple has not been rebuilt to this day.
Yeah, and you know what? That is the exact reason why we know that the Gospels weren't actually written until after that happened. Like, nobody wrote down anything. It was all oral history up until that point. If you've ever played the phone game, you know how oral history can get fucked really fast.
So when Jesus says to them in Matthew chapter 24 that not one stone will be left upon another, and then they ask him, well, when are these things going to occur? And he says, before this generation passes away, these things are going to occur. He says, you will see the Son of Man coming in power on the clouds. And everyone's thinking that's a reference to the end of the world. No, it's not. It's a reference to 70 AD. He said that in 30 AD. What's a generation? 40 years. 40 years later, 70 AD, the Roman army descends upon Jerusalem. And
talk about Nostradamusing the fuck out of something there, Frank. I mean, holy shit, that's exactly what you did. You took an obscure line from an old text and was like, this really seems to fit the trade towers being attacked by Muslims. That must mean that it's a reference to the trade towers being attacked by Muslims. Holy shit, Jesus predicted this shit? Holy fuck!
They wipe out Jerusalem. They wipe out the temple. Josephus said there was nothing left. Now, what's all this business about coming in the clouds? What could you see? By the way, Jerusalem's elevated. What could you see from 100 miles if an army was coming on Jerusalem? A cloud of dust. In fact, in the Old Testament, in Isaiah 19, it says Yahweh rides a cloud of judgment against Egypt.
Okay, there's a lot of cloud references in it. Have you not seen artwork by Jesus or by people that believe in Jesus? I mean, he's all up in that shit. I mean, he's just all up in the clouds. Plus, I mean, I would think that if he was going to be an actual prophet and actually do something to where you didn't have to play Nostradamus in order to figure the shit out, he would have probably said dust clouds or some shit like that. He wouldn't have left it vaguely up there for you to interpret however the fuck you want to. You ever think that maybe it was crafted exactly like that so that at any moment in time after it was penned down, people could Nostradamus the fuck out of it? Nah, that makes too much sense for Frank Turek.
The reference to the clouds is the army coming. Jesus is saying that Jerusalem would be judged because they rejected the Messiah within a generation. And there it was.
Whoa, 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 whoa. They rejected Jesus within a generation? Now, if memory serves, a lot of people, I'm not sure if you make this claim, but a lot of people say that Christians in the first century grew exponentially throughout the first century. I mean, like the Christianity that we know today that's split up into so many denominations was all working together at the time, and there were thousands of Christians. There were 3,000 plus Christians. And that happened like almost immediately after the fucker died too. So how can you say that they lost faith in Jesus up until that point? I mean, I really don't understand that.
This guy talks about it in a couple of works that he has done. One is called Antiquities. And here's what he says about Archelaus. Matthew doesn't explain, but the Jewish historian Josephus does in putting out a disturbance at the temple in 4 BC, so he's just taken over. Archelaus sent in troops into the temple and slaughtered 3,000 Jews. Passover that year was canceled.
Okay, yeah, good history story there. I mean, I don't see any contention with that. It doesn't actually place the Bible in history other than that one simple fact that Archelaus did exist at the time. You've got Josephus to corroborate that. Plus, you've got a lot of other different sources that would corroborate Archelaus being around that time. It's not like you have that one source in order to cement Archelaus in time. I mean, you don't. But I give you that you're showing that there is historical evidence in the Bible, and I don't think anybody disputes that claim exactly. Of course, there's historical evidence in the Bible. So I don't know what you're doing.
He tries to assert his authority as soon as he takes over. He murders 3,000 Jews. They cancel Passover. A whole bunch of Jews are probably going back on the road toward Egypt. And Joseph and Mary and the baby Jesus are on their way back going, where are you guys going? Isn't it Passover? Archelaus, haven't you heard? He just slaughtered 3,000 of our brethren. Passover's been canceled. So, what's Joseph doing? I'm not going to where that homicidal maniac is. I just left that area to escape a homicidal maniac. His father, I'm not going back there. I'm going to go to Galilee. Right? But you don't get that from the Bible. You get that from Josephus. And Josephus is writing about 40 years after this. So, here comes an outside source, Josephus, and he says Matthew is reliable.
Well, hold on. He doesn't say that Matthew is entirely reliable there, buddy. He says that one reference to Archelaus is reliable. That's what he establishes. He doesn't establish that the entirety of Matthew is, I mean, that's like a composite division fallacy, maybe. I mean, it'd be a composite fallacy because you're saying that because one part of it is validated, then that means the entire whole of it is validated. So you can't do that. That's fallacious as fuck, dude. You're being disingenuous at this point to say that one reference validates the entirety of Matthew. That's just pure fucking bullshit.
Next one, number 2. Why did they take Jesus to the temple when he was 12? Why not 10? Why not 11? In fact, if you look at Luke, he raises a question. It says every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. Every year. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom, and they took Jesus with them. And you know the rest of the story. He's found in the temple after they... And by the way, isn't this just like about 12-year-old kids? You know, when you go in a group with their friends, you're thinking, well, their parents are watching them. And their parents are thinking, well, you're watching his kid, and somehow Jesus gets left out of the whole gaggle.
Do you not watch your kids whenever you go somewhere? I mean, do you seriously rely on other people to watch your kids? I'm going to say this right now. If I take my son out somewhere, even if it's with a group of friends, I'm not going to trust my group of friends to do my job for me, okay? I don't know if that's what fictional Mary and Joseph and Jesus were doing, but the fact that he was 12 when he went there, the thing that comes to mind first is the 12 tribes of Egypt, or not Egypt, sorry, the 12 tribes of Israel, and how that number 12 is very representative of that. You see that with his disciples later, because he has 12 disciples. 12 is a pretty big number in the Bible. Like, it's not numerology to say it, it's literary. It's a literary device that they use to string all of this thing, to subtly relate Jesus to the rest of the work of the Bible, of the Old Testament, of the New Testament, and everything. I mean, in order to connect him to that, I mean, he would have to be 12. And I mean, I'm sure that there's other better reasons for it. I'm not saying that I'm right about that, but that's the first thing that kind of comes to mind, is that it's very ironic that he's 12 when they send him there. Not for any kind of, oh, he's 12, we can look after him, he can look after himself, some kind of bullshit like that. We're fucking shitty-ass parents. That's not the reason that comes to mind. A literary reason, in literature, it would make sense that he would need to be 12 to go up there, because he's supposed to be Jesus, the Son of God, like a direct descendant of God. He's also supposed to be the direct descendant of David, and and he's got this great lineage behind him that is all about the 12 tribes of Israel. For him to be 12 is, I don't know, just seems to be too much of a coincidence, for it to not be literary. Plus, there's the fact that we don't have any kind of evidence to suggest that Jesus actually did this. We just have the Bible.
And he's in the temple and nobody notices it until they're halfway home. Where's Jesus? I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was with you. Where is he? And they go back and they find him in the temple. But why would they go down there when he's 12? Why not 11? Why not 10? Why not 13?
Well, they didn't say that they didn't take him at those points. They didn't say that they took him any earlier or anything like that. There's no way to know when exactly he was 12. But also, just because it says, oh, hey, he was 12, we took him down there, and this is what happened, there's nothing to say that, oh, look, Archelaus died, and so therefore we can go, which is where you're going with this, I know.
Why 12? And why did his parents go without him until 12? Again, Josephus may answer the question. In the 10th year of Archelaus' government, both his brethren and the principal men of Judea and Samaria, not being able to bear his barbarous and tyrannical usage of them, accused him before Caesar. Caesar, upon hearing what certain accusers of his had to say and what reply he could make, banished Archelaus to a city in Gaul, which is present-day France. So the people basically rebelled against Archelaus by going to Caesar and saying, this guy's a psycho. We want somebody else. And so they hear all this. Caesar does, and he says, Archelaus, what do you have to say for yourself? Apparently Archelaus did not do a good job in defense. You're gone. He took all his property from him, sent him to France. What year was that? That's about the time Jesus would have been 12.
You don't give us any kind of fucking dates at all. So Archelaus was banished in 6 CE, right? That gives him 10 years. So if Jesus was 12 then that would have made it 6 CE, or 6 BCE when Jesus was born. Like if that doesn't match anything that's in the Bible. Like in the Bible, it said that Jesus is born anywhere between the reign of Archelaus, between 4 BCE and 6 CE. So, you're not actually convincing me at all. Plus, you're not even considering the fact that it would have taken time for them to hear that Archelaus had been. So, I mean, it makes no goddamn sense for you to say that the year that Archelaus was deposed, that is when they brought Jesus and him being 12 and all that other jazz. It just doesn't make sense. And you're also adhering to very hard dates here. Like 6 CE is a very hard date. That puts him firmly in 6 BCE for him to be born. And the multiple accounts of the Bible disagree with the idea of when he was born.
You say, wasn't Jesus born in zero? First of all, there's no 0 year. Okay. But no, the way the calendar goes, he was born around 6 BC, sometime between 4 and 6 BC. Okay? So why did they bring him when he's 12? Because Archelaus is gone. Archelaus is no longer a threat. So they avoided bringing Jesus into Archelaus' territory when Archelaus was there. As soon as they figured out that Archelaus is gone, he's deposed, he's in France, I guess it's safe to take the boy down to Jerusalem. Let's go. Now, is that a little bit of speculation? Yeah, but it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Okay, so you admit that it's speculation and that you don't have any evidence for it, but yet you're probably about to say that it validates some kind of fucking book.
In fact, now you've got Josephus also now verifying Luke.
Well, of course he verifies Luke. I mean, come on. It can't be that he verifies that that one particular thing in Luke, which actually it doesn't even verify. No, it doesn't even verify that one particular. Like, it doesn't even have any kind of instance in Luke that it verifies or it absolves. So there's practically no fucking reason why you should be saying that Josephus validates both of these books. Very interested to continue your series there, Frank. I think that, you're one of the better debaters and whatnot. While I'm fairly certain I'm never going to get to debate you, at least I can make these little videos rebutting you and showing how ridiculous your proof for Jesus is. If you indeed like this video, please go down below, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave out, and I will see you guys next time.
Subscribe to Godless Engineer, subscribe to Mythicist Milwaukee, and don't forget to buy your tickets for the Price-Ehrman debate at Turner Hall in Milwaukee, October 21st. See you there.